Hello, everybody. Hey, we're live. We're live. Hey, I had to change up a little bit and go someplace else and come to my desk and go old school. We had so many issues going on trying to get the program on today, and I do apologize to anyone and everyone who tried to be with us live, and then due to time considerations, you could not do that. Hey, but we are here and we are live right now to go through this program. I see that my slide just decided to share itself, but you gotta laugh. It's Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law. If you don't know Murphy's Law says that anything that can go wrong will go wrong, right? That's just what it is. So, that being said, we are still here. I am still going to do an hour. I will not be defeated to not do an hour on this subject today. Hopefully, we will get some people who can still come in and participate in the live program as we do it right here, right now. But I just want to say again, I thank you for all of those who are sticking with us on this and staying with us, because, wow, it was kind of crazy, going and everything that was going on with all of our technical issues. So if you are new to this program, I'm going to say it again for those who will see this episode and go, I missed all of the other stuff. This is the Erudition Network interactive Black History and Knowledge session. We do this session every Thursday night to teach Black history and to provide knowledge and understanding to folks about things in history that may not have necessarily been shared in school or just in general. A lot of things have been hidden and a lot of things have, we don't really get full coverage of. Good to see you, Taisha. I know you were with us earlier. Thank you for sticking with us, sticking around, and staying active with us as I go through this program today. So I don't want to belabor too much. Before this episode today, as advertised, I wanted to talk about migrations. Migrations are a thing with me because I believe that we do not teach migration properly in school. We give people theories, and for many, many years, we have been taught these unfortunate theories, and many have taken them as fact, as pure fact, when in truth, they are really just that. They are theories. I speak specifically of what I advertised for tonight, the Baringa Theory. If you don't know what the Baringa Theory is, you may have heard it under a different name. You may have heard it under the name of the Bering Strait Theory. Or you may have heard it under the name of the Clovis First Theory if you are a college academic and were taught about it in history. I have friends who are, have doctorates in history, and many of them, we've had discussions over the years where they tell me, well, Eddie, we know about the ice mass and how things happen. So you may have heard this theory in many, many different ways. I'm gonna borrow my son for school they sent him maps, and which is really good for his K-12 school. So I'm advertising them without really wanting to advertise them, per se. But right here, we were looking at the map, and I was showing him this area of the map here, right? Russia. You see that area right there? See that area? I just want to show you that this is still being taught in school, and you'll see that you have the Bering Sea, you have all of this stuff right here, right? So I say that to say these things are still being taught in schools everywhere, right? We see it a lot. I'm going to share with you, because I know some of you all are older like me and trying to look that way. You probably said to yourself, what is he doing? This is a more bigger representation of what I just showed you, right? This is what we see as the Bering Strait, right? As they teach this to our children. Now, many of you are saying, Eddie, why do you care? That's thousands of years ago. Why do you care? Well, I care because if we teach our kids a theory, if we tell them something and they accept it as a fact, we need to at least be able to speak to what's wrong with that theory. We need to at least be able to say, hey, there's a problem with that. Scientists theorize that 20,000, 40,000 years ago, this is the theory, right? That was our last ice age. And the world was covered with large sheets of ice, and sea levels were very, very low. And so when you look at this picture, you see that this is ice, an ice shelf that went from Siberia into Alaska. And this very much is a theory that many of us, and some of you, this might key to you from what you saw when you were in school. And if you do, hey, drop, this is interactive. Drop it in the chat and let us know. Let me know what you are taught. Do you remember the Bering Strait theory? Were you taught that in school? I know, Tina, that's a better view, but I wanted to specify and show this map because I also wanted to show that we're still teaching these things. To emphasize that, here's another history book, right? To emphasize that this is still being taught. And the reason why I wanted you to see that picture, right? Here we are again. Open up the history book, first couple of pages, and what do you see? Beringa, right? Or Beringa. It's the first thing that you see. Because, see, we want to be able to teach and tell everybody about that. Now, I'm not going to challenge you and say that Beringa did not exist. I'm not going to say that there is not support to some of that theory. But I will say that we must not separate ourselves from the idea of pseudo-historians, pseudo-scientists who were motivated by keeping migration going a certain way, right? To circumvent the idea of early man ever coming here in other ways. More on that in a little bit. But I want you to keep in mind that they're telling you that we came over through this particular ice shelf, and that the first people, that's how they got here. And I specify this because as we go through, and I'm loading more of my slides, ladies and gentlemen, in the background, as we go through more and more of these slides that I'm going to show you, I want you to start to see a pattern here, a idea that they're trying to condition in all of us. And really, honestly, they have conditioned in all of us. All right. So when we look at that, as we just reviewed and looked at it at this map, you see, as I said, it's a connection, right? So when the older scientists pushed the idea of the Bering Strait theory, it was with a purpose. History teachers have taught for generations now that during the last ice period at the Bering Strait that connected Alaska and Siberia, they proposed that early humans crossed this land bridge during this time, and over time, as the ice melted, some were marooned in the Americas somewhere around 20,000 years ago, when all of the ice sheets started to melt in the Bering Strait. That theory is so widely accepted, as I just showed you, that it still has evidence and reference on our maps. It's still taught in our history books to our kids. Scientists were dying on the vine to push the idea that this was a fact. And they did not want to have any other thought, any other representation. I'm gonna remove this one and show you another slide. This slide right here shows you the migration of modern humans. And again, you will notice something here. If you're keyed in, you will notice something here. This is a great map because what it actually shows is it shows you timelines, right? It actually shows you different periods in which supposedly humans left and went through Europe, through what is now Russia, through Mongolia. But on this map, I can't really zoom in, but I want you to really see one particular fact here. I'm gonna see if I can share another screen with you that can kind of go more deep here. Give me one moment here. I really want you to see something here. There we go. There we go. All right, I'm going to share another screen with you, and I'm using these visual tongue-tied. I'm using these visual examples here because I want you to really understand where I'm about to go with this. Because see, there's some lies going on here, right? If you don't want to call it a lie, let's at least call it a fallacy. Is that better? Is that better? But there's some fallacy going on here, right? So I'm going to try to share this with you. You see right here, over in the left right here, I want you to look to the left of the map that I just showed you, the PDF I just showed you, right? If you look, you see something called Laga Velo Boy, Portugal. You see it? And you see where it says at the Atlantic crossing? You see that? That's important for you to understand here, because I want you to get it in your mind that look down by Africa. They tell you that all of this life came out of Africa, and never do you see any reference, any evidence of a crossing that happens from Africa to the Americas. Never once do you see that. If you go back and you look at the spread out image of what I just showed you, you see them go out of their way to walk man through Europe, through the East. You see that man could have crossed anywhere into Australia. He could have crossed into India. He could have crossed into areas of Singapore, into Malaysia, all of this, but never do you see it going west from Africa to the Americas. Why is that? I got 5 people in here right now. Anybody got a theory? Anybody got a theory why migration, why books and books of migration and lessons all over the world tell us that man left Africa, because they can't dispute that anymore. But he decided to walk all along the land masses and never ever cross from Africa to the Americas. It's a good theory, Tina. You can look at Pangea and suggest that some of us were already there. And I may even give you the idea that there is evidence of that too. But I'm talking about migration. Somebody else, anybody. Because it's really, really important to understand that they made sure that up by Europe, they showed you an Atlantic crossing. They went out of their way to show you an Atlantic crossing. Why didn't they do that for Africa? Why do we see this up here? And I want you to really get an understanding, a reference of how spread out that actually is. Let's add another thing here. Look at the distance from Europe. This right here is an actual map of when they say Africans came over to the Americas. And this is based on the slave trade. I want you to look at the distance between Europe and the Americas, and Africa and South America. And I also want you to think about the trade winds and the way that the winds go that can take you in a boat over here. Now, if they can tell us that man could sail over here, European man, the Portuguese, the Spanish, that they could sail over and discover this far-reaching land, but that Africans could not. It's insanity. But this is what is being taught. This is what's being taught to our kids. And over again, every year, we have children who are being taught the Baringa Theory. We have children who accept the fact, if you ask them, some of you all out there, when we ask you, how did man get here? What do you say? You say, well, hey, they got here coming over the ice shelf and they came through Alaska and they came down. That's what it said. The theory is so widely accepted that many push the idea of the Clovis first argument. I believe I have a slide here. If you are not aware of, and I have some friends of mine who are academics, so you if you're watching this, I'm sure you are aware. The idea, I think I have a slide in here. That's not the one. Right? Oh, this is another one that shows you, again, the idea of how people coasted around the first Americans, how they got here. This is what's being taught. But you'll notice at the top here, it says recent archaeological, good Lord, finds show that pre-Clovis people arrived. Here's the thing. The Clovis first theory suggests, right? It suggests is that spears found in Clovis, New Mexico, the spear points that were used are so old that it suggests that humans migrated out of the Bering and created these spearheads around 13,000 years ago. 13,000 years ago. The Clovis first theory was pushed through academics all over the world because the Clovis first theory hypothesized that no human could exist in the Americas prior to Clovis based on those spearheads. However, as you see in this map here, as you see in just common sense, if you think about how man migrated and where it came from, evidence, both archaeological, biological, has been found to suggest that this is not the truth. That this is not real. And that though people could have come over through the ice shelf, though we could have had connection over here through Pangea, we go out of our way to dissuade the idea that Africans crossed over through the Atlantic into the New World. I would argue with you that pseudo-archaeology and history has tried its best for centuries to dissuade us and disprove it. Because why would we lie? The ships that are found, ancient ships and relics that were found in South America. I showed you that the early Americans in South America, when I showed you the basalt heads, one of my friends sent this to me as a gift. I showed you, I've talked to you about how Columbus knew when he got over here that blacks were here. But yet we buy into the lie. We buy into the lie of Beringa, of the Clovis first lie, the fallacy, because people don't like for you to say lie. When we look at evidence that predates Clovis, there is a thing called the Paisley Caves in Oregon. That shows that pre-Clovis, non-Clovis cultures in North America left residue, left evidence, obsidian, and turf artifacts that show that there were other people here, that there were other human DNA retrieved from feces. Yes, I know that disgusts you, but that's just the facts. Dried human excrement, foods, tools. But yet, we don't want to go with the idea that migration could have came another way other than the land bridge. It doesn't fit the models that we want our kids to understand. Do you not know that many American indigenous people do not like the Bering Strait theory, the Clovis theory? They don't like it because they see it as being misused by native, non-scientists, our children, our society, who tells them that they came from a land that many of them they do not believe in their stories or whatever they have a connection to. However, the other part of that is so interesting, if for all of you out here are saying, well, Eddie, we shouldn't care. We should care. Because every shred of DNA evidence and every fossil that is found supports the fact that human beings came from Africa. The idea of this should not be lost on us. We all have a common ancestry. We all have a common ancestry. And though environment, though different things can mutate and change the DNA of people, I shouldn't say DNA, can change the way we look, feel. We know that most of the indigenous people can trace themselves to be here around 13 to 15,000 years ago. We also know that through some things that have been found, that life was here almost 45 to 50,000 years ago. So think about that. I saw that my wife put in here earlier, people were already here. Pangea is a reality. But at the same time, there is a connective tissue here. We don't have to make up the idea of a Bering Strait theory to try to circumvent later evidence of Black Africans being in the Americas. They went everywhere. There were dark-skinned people in Italy. There's evidence of dark-skinned people in Britain, in Ireland. Their ancestors who were darker, but not necessarily dark as Africans, but due to mutation. We know this. We've covered all of this. But the Baringa lie is such, or fallacy is such an issue because we still teach it. We still teach it. I recall English people were challenged to find a new route, and that, no, even that, they didn't have to find a new route because they knew that it was over here. Maps had already been drawn. Those who teach control what's learned. That is true. But it's up to us to teach differently, to give facts. I mean, that's a long way to travel and doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. But that is what we're taught. That is what we're taught. You know, every time I look at the Baringa lie, it angers me. It personally angers me. Because I see it taught every year. Every year. And then what gets me the most with it is the idea that life could come from Europe people teach what they know. The system dictates what is and isn't taught. Yeah, but that doesn't change what we can teach in our homes. It's a good point. But it doesn't change what we can teach in our homes. Yes, it's always a wow to me, Taisha. I'm always blown away every year when I see new maps, when I see evidence and people pulling evidence along the coastal lines. And I'm going to tell you, as a historian, I will tell you that people do follow coastal lines. Early man traveled along coastal lines, but early man also sailed. We know this. And yet again, we would try to make it seem that the people of North America traveled over here from, and I'm going to really say it, from Europe. Because if you look at the way the maps, and see, here goes with the non-subtlety that is used. The non-subtlety, right? Because I want you to see this. I want you to see how they trek the life out of Africa. And then I want you to see the lines of how they say the diaspora, how it worked. I want you to understand how they go systematically about trying to teach us how life got over here. How even in this PDF right here, they went out of their way to cut the Americas completely out of the picture up until you cross that shelf. They completely tried to say that life could not have gotten over here. You don't see Africa on this side. Nowhere near the Americas, because we don't want you to even make that connection. And many of our maps are still drawn up that way. I want you to go online. That's the homework that I'll give you. I want you to go online and I want you to see how many maps show the world from this perspective right here, where it connects Russia or Siberia with the Americas. That's done on purpose. It's still done on purpose. Not that it's the easiest way to show it, but it's their way of saying, hey, this is how things work. This is how people got where they were. And again, I'm not telling you that that was not one route. But what I'm going to say is it is not the only route. And it shouldn't take, now that we have Black and brown archaeologists and historians who now step forward, right? Who now step forward and say, hey, this is wrong. This isn't the way that it actually happened. We only have that now because now we have people who are willing to challenge, like what we're doing here tonight. I don't know what you're saying. You have a picture of what is. Which is insane because we know that Egypt built boats well before Egypt. We know that boats were built. How do we know this? Because we find relics of ancient boats. How do they suggest that life came from Europe? Because we have ancient boats, Nordic boats. We have boats in history of a collective people. But we choose to tell what history we want to tell. We choose to tell this particular history because it benefits someone. It benefits someone to push that narrative. We've been on for about 30 minutes. Hey, could you all do me a favor? Anybody that's out here right now, if you're on Facebook or you're out there, share this episode. I told myself at every 30-minute mark of our episodes now, I want people to share. So people who missed the notification, when we were having all our technical problems earlier, maybe they forgot that we were on, or maybe they didn't think we came on. Share it. Encourage people to watch. Encourage people to come on and let's have this conversation for these next 30 minutes. Because I think that things like this need to be taught, need to be shared. Many of us don't know. Do you have a map that shows the correct connection or connection that led you to your train of thought? I will tell you this. No, I don't need another map. And I'm going to tell you why. They gave you the map. I showed you it earlier. I'm going to show it to you again. This is not my map. This is what they created. This is what they said. This is the map. If you look on here, this is a map that shows British, Portuguese, French, Spanish, Dutch. This is the map that suggests that they sailed out of Africa into the Americas. This is a map that shows you how they took African coasts and sailed over to the Americas thousands of years after the original man and knew exactly where they were going. See, that's the other lie here. We keep lying with the age of discovery, the age of exploration. We lie. When we talk about Prince Henry the Navigator circumventing and sailing around Africa, and we cut out the Phoenician Hanno, who did it 1,000 years before he did, when we cut out the idea that the winds of the earth, the trade winds, the way people sail over here, the way that that hurricanes travel toward the Americas have not changed. They are the same way. They come off the coast of Africa and the winds blow them to the Americas. On sailboats, they were able to get over here in days. What makes you think that men didn't come over here? Teddy made the point. Teddy made the point that the Egyptians had ships, but they weren't the only ones. The Phoenicians, as I've told you many times before, sailed all over. We know from the Bible, we know from historical documents, even beyond the Bible, that they sailed around Africa. We know that trade was being done in the Red Sea. These are major trading points even to today. But we buy into this supremacy fallacy. And if the question is, what happened to the word fallacy? No, I will continually say fallacy, but I will also call out the lie. Don't believe what your eyes are telling you. Suspend your common sense. Trust only in what we tell you. It's an important thing for us to understand because, as I told you, we're still being told it today. We're still being told these lies today. Many of you, a lot of you, you didn't answer me, but I know you heard about the Bering Strait. I know because they teach it in school like it's the gospel. And unfortunately, for some it is. You know, I'm gonna go more into the academic, right? For so many years, as we talked about the theory, they went so far as to make such a statement that the Clovis first theory showed that no humans, listen to what I'm saying, this is what they wrote down. No humans existed in the Americas prior to Clovis. And that the Clovis people, or the Baringa people, those who migrated out of Europe over into the Americas, were the true owners of this land, the conquerors of this land. They are the ones with the mother technology. Do you understand? Do you hear? You see where I'm going with this? They are the ones with claim to this land. But they knew it was a lie. When I told people for years that when Columbus got here, he knew where he was going. He asked the people of Hispaniola, where is the gold? Where's the gold? He saw that they had gold. In his notes, in his journals, he wrote down that they had gold on their spears. He found in his mind, they must have what everyone has been saying. The Portuguese knew that Africans had sailed. That's why I'm leaving the slide up. They had sailed from the western coast of Africa. Virginia, they explain it by lying, and I'm glad you joined us. Good to see you. by lying about this right here. They explain it by continually and perpetually telling us this lie of the migration of modern human beings. And I'm going to go further. They also lie by telling us this thing, right? They tell us this complete moronic idea. I'm gonna load one of these PowerPoints in here for you all. A couple of weeks ago, I did this thing of points of African history. And in it, I talked about how they lie, what I'm about to get into right now. And Regina, I'm glad you joined us because you gave me the thought to go to this. They lie about the idea that early man, right? All the Darwinian theory, all of the different types of species, the Homo erectus, all the stuff that you were taught in school is to be able to perpetuate the lie. Here we go again. Another map of migration. And never within do they show you South America and Africa meeting. And even by Pangea standards, we know that they were connected. But the lie, the desire to lie is so strong that it shows up in our maps even till this day. Africans went everywhere, Europe and Asia, and they went to Australia. Maps will show you them crossing across the Indian Ocean. Oh, they could sail across the Indian Ocean, but not from Africa to South America, where the sail winds would take them without a problem. And they continue to tell us this. They tell the American Indians, the indigenous people do not like the Beringa or Bering Strait myth. Many of their historians that come out of their culture continually fight the idea of the Bering Strait myth that allows Europe to lay claim, not necessarily Africa. Oh, life can derive from there, but they wanted to be able to claim, control. And if you don't believe that, if you're one of my friends out here who will tell me, Eddie, don't say that because that's not the case. That's not the fact. Then I'm going to take you again. I'm going to take you again to the chart and the map that I showed you earlier. I'm going to take you again to the lie that they tell even in this modern map. Because it's important to understand. Right here, they tell you they have no problem in talking to you about the Atlantic crossing that happens in Europe, in the Britons. They have no problem in telling you that life could cross the ocean that way. But then they go out of their way to separate us from the idea that any African could have ever sailed across the Atlantic in the warmest climate on the planet near the equator and make it over here, even though the natives, the people who were here, the indigenous people, continually built statues, left relics that look like Black people, honored Black people. We're not afraid of them. You know, there was a man, I was telling my sons recently, we were talking about one of the explorers that is never really talked about over here by many people, Esteban. I'll give you another homework assignment tonight. I want you to go. I don't care if you look at Wikipedia. I don't care if you go pull it up on Google. I want you to go look up Estevanico or Esteban. I want you to know who he was, because it's so important for you to understand how when Esteban went and was captured, as they say, as he explored with the Spanish, he was a black man, how he was treated, how he was accepted, how he was seen as different. There are records to show that people were jealous and angry with the idea of how Esteban was treated by native tribes, Indian tribes in the South. But yet many of us are never taught about Esteban. Because if we were to be taught about it or read the actual historical records of his travels, of his journeys, we'd find some things about ourselves and about the way that the natives saw men of color. Exactly. My son just finished 12 years of school and was in college. And he would tell you Esteban who. That is the importance of erudition. That is the importance. Because we want you to start looking at things that you weren't taught. Yet the two little ones learned about the Bering Strait last year, along how Columbus was looking for Asia and stumbled on all of these historical lies that just with a little bit of scratching, you could find out was a lie. A lot of people never heard of Esteban. Look him up. Look him up. For the purposes of time, I can't go into him. But I tell you one thing. When you look at history books and you go through, and I just told you all to look up Esteban and how they will put names of the most minute, inconsequential person. But you look in these books and you can't find these people. You can't find them because they're not meant to be found, because the idea is to guard history. That is why it's being challenged in different states. That's why the idea of Black history is a scary ideal for people. Because Black history is American, is world history. It's history. But because it's been lied about for so long, because we've told lies to each other that we didn't even know, or as my wife said, fallacies. We've given fallacies for so long that we don't even know where to look, how to look. Well, you found a place to look. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not for sophistry. I'm not for fallacy. I'm not for lie. What I'm going to do is what I always do. I'm going to provide you studies. I'm going to provide you information. I'm going to provide you where to go to grow your own knowledge. That's what we do here. That's why it was so important for me today to get back on here. We really aren't, Taisha, in a lot of ways, because it has been controlled. Yeah, we were told that Columbus called the Native Americans Indians because he thought he had landed in India. Columbus knew exactly where he landed. He knew exactly where he landed. And unfortunately, the way that history has been told is so corrupted they know that many of us aren't going to go read Columbus's records of his journeys. We're not going to go pull up his books and try to figure out what Columbus wrote about the indigenous people. When I would tell people about the gold having the same name as the name that was used in Africa, having the same makeup and design. When I tell people that that the indigenous people told Columbus that there were blacks who had gone north into the Americas. When we look at all of the artifacts that have been left, when we look at the monuments that they lie about and say it was a different culture, when they tell us that, well, that culture just vanished. When we see the noses and the lips and what they themselves constructed as what they call Negro features on relics, and then they tell us, don't believe what your eyes see. We really don't know. And the corruption is taught in our schools. Now, that doesn't remove us. That doesn't remove us from teaching our children. I pulled up one history book today and I keep opening it because I want people to see. I'm showing you a basalt head statue a friend of mine gave me, right? And I teach my sons what these heads were given for and why they were built. Huge, huge heads down in Mexico. But if you don't believe me, look here. That's a Clovis spearhead. They're still teaching Paleo-Indian culture that the fact that they came off the ice shelf, and right across from that, they will show you again that same head. But they'll tell you that that's not an African and that the reason why he has big nose and big lips is because they worship animals. And so they transmogrified and added these things to make these folks look like animals. They'll tell you that even though you can go down and see Mayan buildings like Chichen Itza, and you can see that, and they have the same design in many ways to the Egyptian pyramids, that's just a coincidence. We cannot be lost in this. When we look at the people who made their way to Colorado, where I am right now, and you look at the cliff dwelling and you see that these people have connection to Africa. Just a little study, just a little scratching. It blows your mind. 80 to 85% of American artifacts and culture paraphernalia are in European countries. They are. For safekeeping, for holding, because, and some of it, I will tell you, because they don't know what its purpose was. That is why they're digging in South America. That's why they're digging in Egypt. That's why they're constantly digging up. Think about this. People bury, can you imagine? People bury their families with the idea that they're honoring them by whatever their religious or spiritual beliefs are. And yet we have people all over the world digging up people, trying to find how they lived, what they thought. The whole idea of the Renaissance, as I keep telling everyone who watches this, was the idea of reviving it, what was past, what was lost. How did they do that? How did they have that understanding? How do we get that back? I love teaching history. I love teaching history because history is a thing that helps us to be more erudite about ourselves, who we are, where we came from. I wanted to do this show on Baringa. I actually was going to do this as a smaller standalone lesson, but I got so to a point last night where I said, nah, we need to talk about this in the interactive. We need to get into this. We need to show these maps. We need to get a better understanding. This is their slave map. How can they sail and know where to go and tell us that there was never any connection to show anybody where to go? Thank you, bro. We can lie to ourselves. We can believe the Clovis age sites. We can tell ourselves these lies. But I'm going to teach you or give you something to go learn so you no longer get conformed to the lie. So you no longer just believe the migration stories. The lies that, people migrated, but they weren't human. That is what the specification of telling you human migration. And I want you African Americans out here who watch this to think about what they're saying there. They're saying that, yeah, if anybody went over before, they weren't human. But these are the same people who told you up until just yesterday, some of them, that you're not human. We have to engage in our history. We have to be better about our history. We have to be the custodians of it and take it out of the hands of those who would tell us lies to keep us blind, deaf, and ignorant. I thank you all. We got on a lot later today. And I thank you all for sticking, those who stuck with us, those who came in later. Our studio downstairs went boom, just all types of technical difficulties. They lie and we believe it. It's the worst when we don't care to know the truth and entertain the lies. That is true. We're trying to do something about it. This program and other programs to try to do something about it. But I thank you because I do this show and I'm going to be real honest with y'all in the last 2 minutes. I almost gave up doing it tonight. And I said, no, I'm not going to be defeated. I was upset. I have so much going on right now. Many of you may not know. I said it last week. I lost one of my dad this past weekend. And though he was not my biological father, he was my dad. He helped to raise me. And it has been very hard. Because one thing I will say is that I am the product of those who took the time to raise me. And so it has been very difficult. And I was so frustrated. But I would not be defeated. Because that does not, thank you, my brother. that does not hold well to the way my mom, the way my dad, the way my family, the way I was raised. So I'm going to do what I got to do. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Thank you for sticking with us. I will drop some information in our chat. Please, I'm going to tell you, go join the Erudition Network, Black History Interactive group on Facebook. I'm going to start dropping things exclusively in there that will have studies and different things that you can go pull up, or links to those things. I'm going to always drop it here in our chats, and I'm going to always put it on our page, and our page links to that group. I want us to start networking with so many different things so we can push these ideas of this knowledge out here, so that you have what you need to help to teach your children, as I teach mine, and as me and Tina teach ours. I want you to help us to further and grow knowledge. Look up Esteban tonight if you haven't already. Go read about Esteban. Come back next week. Maybe we'll talk about it. You can drop it in chat. All right, everybody. Until next week, I thank my son, Eddie, who is always in the back and tries to encourage his dad, especially when things go wrong. And I thank him for that. But until next week, I will see you then. You all be blessed.